welcome to Dragons, Gazelles, and Unicorns podcast. I'm Rosemary Truman, the founder and CEO of the Center for Advancing Innovation, and we have the sincere pleasure of having Terry Bray, the head of tech transfer at Georgia Tech, on the show today. Thank you, Terry, for joining.
Thanks, Rosemary. Glad to be here.
So, Terry, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background and how you actually got into tech transfer.
Sure. Everyone seems to sort of fall into this field from different paths, and certainly mine's different than everyone else's. I spent the first 15 years of my career as a researcher at University of Alabama at Birmingham, and part of that time I was a faculty member in the Department of Biomedical Engineering. During that time, I was an inventor on several things that we were fortunate enough to commercialize, and as I did that over and over, I just got really interested in the business side of science, basically, and so made a career change back in 2006 to get into tech transfer. Started off as a licensing associate at North Carolina State University, spent about 6 years there doing that, then had the opportunity to come back to UAB in their tech transfer operation, and was there for about 3 years, and then went into industry for a year as an executive vice president of business development. So that was really interesting to be on the other side of the table because I was primarily sourcing and in-licensing technologies from universities and other companies. So I got to see both perspectives for a while, and then got recruited for the job I have now at Georgia Tech as director of the technology licensing group. And we're actually attached to an entity called Georgia Tech Research Corporation. We're a separate legal entity from Georgia Tech. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. A supporting organization. We basically act as a contracting arm. GTRC is unique in a number of respects. Some universities have a separate legal organization for handling primarily tech transfer operations. We're a little different, that we handle the monies coming into the university as well. So I'm the director of the traditional tech transfer function that supports Georgia Tech, but we also handle the monies that come in from NIH or NSF or DOD or any that you might name that wants to sponsor research.
So grants. So all the grants that you all receive as well,
Yeah. So we get the monies here. The work is subcontracted to Georgia Tech where it's performed, and then any intellectual property that's created at Georgia Tech is assigned to and owned by GTRC, and it falls into my group's purview for management at that point.
Got it. Well, interesting background. Yeah. I think that a lot of people do just fall into technology transfer. They start to get the love for commercialization, getting these inventions out. So what do you think separates a good tech transfer office from one that is not as good?
A bit of a loaded question, but just having been in 3 different offices and had sort of a range of experiences of different structures, I would say having a structure that works efficiently and effectively, where the tech transfer operation is essentially autonomous for the most part. I mean, obviously it reports to a board or some vice president for research or something of that nature, but allowing the tech transfer office to be staffed with professionals who know what they're doing and are allowed to make decisions and execute agreements without having to go through some sort of legal review process that slows things down. So in my view, my experience, and certainly my peer institutions where I have colleagues, when an agreement has to go through the Office of Legal Affairs and they don't have an efficient means for reviewing and approving or providing feedback on draft agreements, that, in my experience, has been the greatest rate limiting step to getting deals done.
How fast do you guys get deals done?
It depends, and you'll probably hear me say that a lot in this podcast. You know, the devil's always in the details. And it also depends on how aligned both sides are who are discussing the agreement. I mean, I literally have done license agreements in a day, and I've had some that took 18 months and everything in between. It really just depends on how aligned the 2 sides are, how cooperative they are. If the other side's trying to ask for unreasonable terms, that's a bit of a challenge because we're required under Bayh-Dole to negotiate for quote-unquote fair value, and that's obviously a subjective term. But certainly there's lots of history around various types of license agreements, different structures, and I think there tend to be ranges around which most deals fall, and when you get outside of that, that's when it can get a little bit challenging to get deals done more quickly.
Do you all ever take equity in your licensing agreements?
We do sometimes. I mean, if that makes sense as part of the deal. We don't always, but certainly if it makes sense, we will take equity as part of the deal.
And do you all ever, so you do the licensing deal or whatever the deal is, you probably do Kratos, I guess, as well through your group?
We do. We don't do a lot of those, but we do them occasionally.
You know, what do you do after the deal's done?
Well, there's certainly due diligence that has to be done. I mean, there are terms that the licensee is going to have to meet, typically milestones, which can be development milestones, it can be sales milestones, fundraising milestones, things of that nature. And we have people who follow up and make sure that the licensee is meeting those individual milestones, and if there's not, then at a minimum that causes us to have a conversation to understand why. In certain cases, there may be business reasons where the market environment has changed, and or maybe a competitor's come in the market or new technology. So you just have to have a conversation. Sometimes do amendments to adjust or revise those terms.
Do you do anything to kind of cultivate the further relationship with the people that you've licensed to?
Absolutely. I mean, this is definitely a relationship business. I mean, if you can't initiate, build, maintain, and foster good relationships, you're not going to be successful in tech transfer. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And when I'm looking to hire people on my team, I probably put as much weight on the soft side or the people skills side of things as I do their technical background or their experience or their training, because it's hugely important to be able to have good relationships with people and to communicate well in all forms.
So, you know, what I think about your ecosystem in Georgia, the Atlanta area, I think about it as being more of a community versus an ecosystem that you've cultivated there. And I would love to hear from your perspective, what are the unique advantages you think you have there?
I think we have a number. I think we have, you know, certainly in Georgia Tech, we have an outstanding research institution which generates a lot of intellectual property. We have, you know, a community of entrepreneurs and investors and service providers. All those folks, all those stakeholders play an important role in getting technologies commercialized that are created here. We have some infrastructure advantages. I mean, Atlanta has one of the busiest airports in the world, and so getting in and out of here is very easy, relatively speaking. So I think that's also a huge advantage as well, as it's just easy to do business here. So I think there's a number of factors that go into allowing this community to be as successful as it has, and it's continuing to grow. There's more and more people getting involved. There's more and more capital being attracted to not just the Atlanta area, but Georgia more generally.
So, you know, it's really funny when I traveled 100% for so many years, and I used to have the saying, when you die, you either go through Atlanta or Chicago. Yeah. And you know, it was really interesting. Recently, I guess last year I was in Atlanta, and I hadn't been there for 10 years. I could not believe how it has exploded in terms of growth.
Oh, it's been tremendous. I've been here 4 years in this role. I'm actually a Georgia Tech alum, so I was here in the late 80s as a student, and just the change from when I was here as a student to when I came back in this current role was just night and day. It was like, you know, going to another world.
Yeah. You know, so you were talking about people skills earlier and how important it is. You basically hire people based on their people skills and also their technical skills. And so when you hire people, do you also look at kind of how they engage with industry and academia, government? What is your thoughts on, you know, the engagement side of things?
Well, all the stakeholders play an important role in getting a technology from the bench into the marketplace. So being able to speak the language of all those different folks, because they sometimes, you know, almost literally speak a different language. Certainly investors have their own lingo. Government folks have their own lingo as well. Quite often, there's a lot of acronyms that fly around. Sometimes it seems like acronyms for the acronyms.
Yes, yes.
So just being able to communicate with a wide range of stakeholders and being able to interface well with them, understand what their needs are, what their goals are, what they are trying to accomplish in advancing their cause or helping you advance yours. I think all those are critical skills to be able to do. And certainly we don't expect everyone to come in here knowing necessarily how to do all of those things, and that's part of what we train them up to do.
And so what do you think, what are your kind of goals for 2020 for your tech transfer office?
I think it's certainly to, continue the hopefully, good work we've been doing for a number of years, and a lot of that predates me, so I certainly don't claim credit for our historical successes, but certainly to try to keep doing what we do well, and where we can make some improvements to do so, and to keep doing things better. I always tell my people, I want us to be not just excellent but elite. I want us to strive to be the best we can, and we're never going to achieve perfection or do everything perfectly well. We're all going to make mistakes, including myself, but as long as we're trying to do things the right way and trying to do things the best we can and trying to do best practices, which we certainly are unabashedly happy to steal from other folks who have better ideas than we do. I just want to do the best job I can. I'm passionate about tech transfer, having been on essentially all sides of technology creation and commercialization at this point. It's just something I'm very passionate about, and I love to see interesting ideas developed in the laboratory get out into the marketplace where they benefit society.
Ed, what's an example of one of the best practices you've implemented recently that you unabashedly stole from?
I don't know that I can necessarily point to one I've unabashedly stole, but I probably have. One of the things we did after I got here, which I think has been really effective, is we established what I call our BOLO program, which is Be on the Lookout. So we have companies that contact us. We certainly make contacts with companies when we go to conferences and other places. And one of the things we try to do is do a BOLO sheet. So we try to understand what they're looking for specifically. And when we get new technologies that come in the door, we match that against our BOLO sheets to see if there's a potential match. And so when we reach out to a company, they know that they're getting a technology opportunity that truly should be relevant to them. We're not just spamming them with everything.
Right.
So that's been an effective tool.
That's good. How did you implement that? I mean, just technically, do you have like a spreadsheet or do you have a system? A technology system?
Yeah, we have a system. So we're fortunate to have marketing support on my team. So I have a full-time marketing person. So that's really one of their key jobs is when those new invention disclosures come to the door to compare that against our BOLO sheets. Okay. But yeah, as a practical matter, we have a spreadsheet and a database that we utilize.
And just a tactical question, I think there's a wide variety of different ways that people try to get the word out about new technologies, like, social media platforms, email, calling people. How do you engage? Do you engage on all those different platforms, or is it more personal? We
engage on all those platforms, and we use social media. We do traditional email campaigns. The BOLO program has been very effective. Frankly, the best source of leads remains, and I think this is universal at every university that does tech transfer. The best source of leads for companies who want technologies we have are the inventors themselves.
Right.
Certainly a majority, if not a significant majority of deals and licenses that get executed originate or get there because the inventor provided a warm introduction to someone at a company.
Yeah. It's been interesting. My experience is that when we analyze inventions, because we have about 170,000 inventions we work with, and that's, it equates to about 500,000 patents. It's like, because some of them, the inventions have a whole patent families. we will list out all the different applications for the inventions. And sometimes there's 5 to 10 different applications, and then look at the companies in those spaces that may want to see the invention advanced. But what's really interesting is sometimes when we run our competitions, it's like we're asking for talent from everywhere, and we'll see companies that we didn't expect to engage with the technology or have any use for it. It's amazing that you can do your strategic analysis, and then sometimes you find all these people that really want to advance the invention in a way you've never seen before. The inventors are certainly always excited about that when we actually run our challenges. Over the next few years, what do you think is going to happen in technology transfer? Do you think there's going to be any dramatic changes, or do you think there's going to be, or do you think it's going to continue to move along the way it is?
I hope there will be. The key issue I think most tech transfer offices have is finding that right company that wants a specific technology. That's always the biggest challenge. Of the technologies I think most universities get, probably only a fraction ultimately get licensed.
Yeah.
And if you want to go into my thoughts on that, we can. But I think that speaks to at least in some respects, the differences in how research is performed in industry versus how it's done in academia. And sometimes people seem to conflate the two. So certainly my experience in industry and sort of what I've observed, typically in industry you have a product or service in mind that you're trying to create that you think there's a market need for. So you'll quite often do some research and development along the way, and as part of that, quite often intellectual property gets created, patentable inventions, maybe copyrighted works, but it's all to support that target product or service. So essentially, 100% of the IP gets utilized. Now that's obviously not entirely correct. The projects get killed. Sometimes you change direction, but for purposes of my comments, let's just say it is. Academic research is very different because you're doing fundamental research in most cases. Most of it's not applied. So a researcher has an interesting idea they want to explore. They write a grant to NSF or NIH. It gets funded. They go off and explore that idea, and sometimes an invention pops out of that. Well, that's great, and that's when it sort of drops into my bucket. But that is now a technology that has to go find a problem to solve,
right?
As opposed to creating IP that is specifically geared towards solving a problem you've already identified. So I think that's why the success rate of getting university-based technologies is relatively low, because we have all these really interesting scientific observations, but quite often they don't necessarily solve a commercially relevant problem. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges, just fundamentally universities have to overcome. I think we do a phenomenally great job of getting technologies in the marketplace. I think our success rate, 10 years after we receive an invention disclosure, I think we're on the order of something like 25% of our technologies are ultimately licensed during that time, plus or minus a little bit, which I think is fantastic, given that we have all these technologies that are really interesting scientific observations, and we have to go find these companies that would agree with us that, yes, this technology solves your problem. And quite often we don't even know what problems the industry is trying to solve.
Right. So what about your spin-outs? What are you doing there to try to, improve spin-outs, or do you have any strategic thrusts around that?
Well, we certainly do a number of spin-outs. I think over the last 10 years, we've probably averaged 10 a year. That's plus or minus. Some years we've done 5, some we've done 15. But, the number of startups we can do really depends on what comes in the door, so what's in our portfolio, and then having an interested entrepreneur who wants to take that technology and spin out a company. We really only license it to someone who wants to do it. Just like every other university, we don't actually make the companies or make the widgets. We have to partner through licenses with people that do. So that's probably the biggest rate limiting step, is having enough entrepreneurs who have identified a specific technology. So we get out in the community and try to make those connections. I go and my team go to as many sort of networking events as we can. We're connected with investor groups who are also connected with entrepreneurs they have on their Rolodex. So, we're constantly trying to get the word out about Georgia Tech technologies generally, but also about, specific things that we do. There are also some other supporting organizations here. We're the hub for I-Core South, which is an NSF program, and that's been hugely helpful, I think, in helping potential companies go through customer discovery and vet their idea to see if there really is a need for their product or service. We also have a group called Venture Lab, which is focused on helping Georgia Tech affiliated people to start companies, and they also manage the I-Core program. So those are some other things that are available to people that have a Georgia Tech connection that they can utilize to try to start a company.
What are some final thoughts that you would like to leave with the people who are listening on the future of technology transfer?
I think it's a great career. It's been a fun second career for me. I've really enjoyed it. Certainly not every day not every aspect of it is fun every day, just like any other job. But I think tech transfer has been hugely important for the U.S. economy. I think Bayh-Dole's been arguably one of the most successful pieces of legislation ever passed in the history of the United States. It's had a tremendous impact. And as long as we keep making improvements to help that law and to help folks like myself and others in the tech transfer community be able to more effectively manage intellectual property credit at universities, I think we will certainly be able to maintain and hopefully improve the success. Hopefully there won't be dramatic changes that would be adverse to the success and the things that we're already doing well. And certainly that's my hope. But I certainly intend to finish out my career doing tech transfer. I plan to be around here a while. So as a Georgia Tech alum, that's definitely something that's important to me, to help see Georgia Tech succeed and see all these really innovative technologies get out the door. But certainly folks who might have an interest in this as a career, definitely encourage you to explore it. I mean, people come from all different backgrounds, so there's quite often room for you no matter where you are right now.
Are you hiring?
Actually, I've just filled 2 spots I had on my team, but certainly hope to add more in the future. So I'm happy to connect with people on LinkedIn if they want to reach out to me. Don't mind doing that at all. Certainly turnover happens from time to time, so I fully expect to have other opportunities on my staff in the future.
Well, thank you, Terry. Really appreciate your time today. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I don't think I do, actually.
Okay.
I've tried to think of some as we chatted, but none have come to mind. But I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. This has been fun.
No, I appreciate your time as well. Thank you very much. I think the valuable insights you provided today will be very helpful for people listening. So have a great day.
You do the same. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.